Julia Rhodes woke up with three undeniable truths. First, someone had turned her brain into a construction site for a brand new skyscraper. Second, this luxurious penthouse was definitely not her usual suite at the area. And third, there was a half-naked man humming Tom Petty while frying omelets in the kitchenette. Before the story begins, drop a comment below and tell us what city you're watching from. And don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the ride. Good morning, my beautiful wife, he said, spinning around with a frying pan like he'd just won the Super Bowl. Espresso. Or should we fight fire with fire? I heard the best cure for a hangover is just embracing the madness. Julia sat up in the massive bed. Her Prada blazer and Ralph Lauren pants formed a compromising trail from the front door to the sheets. She glanced at her left hand, and her heart plummeted. A rose gold wedding ring dotted with tiny rubies glittered on her finger. What? Who are you? She nearly screamed, Cooper Ashford. But my friends call me Coop. He gave a dramatic bow, still holding the pan. We are, according to the great state of Nevada, legally married as of 11:47 p.m. last night. Her phone lit up like Times Square. 91 notifications. The first message, from Eleanor Carmichael. Julia, incredible news. The partners are thrilled about your marriage. We've always valued employees with stable personal lives. It shows maturity and great judgment. Can't wait to meet your husband at Friday's dinner. Also, partnership review has been moved up in your favor. Julia read the message once. Then again. Then 10 more times. Her caffeine-deprived brain refused to process reality. This can't be happening, she muttered, pinching her arm hard. Delirium, stress, hallucination. Full-blown breakdown. Actually, Coop corrected, sliding fluffy omelets onto plates. It was tequila, champagne, and those neon green shots. But if you need another reality check, I can pinch you too. Turn it off. Julia jumped up, got tangled in silk sheets, and crashed spectacularly to the floor. Coop tried not to laugh. He failed. Listen, I get it. Not the most traditional morning after, he began. I gave a keynote speech to 500 lawyers yesterday. Julia interrupted, her voice echoing off the walls. I said marriage is a patriarchal trap, that I'd never sacrifice my independence, that romance is a statistical fallacy. Yeah, I was there. Front row, Coop said, nodding. Great presentation, especially those 17 PowerPoint slides on divorce economics. Then how did you convince me? A silence as sharp as glass filled the room. I'm sorry. What? Julia whispered. Coop sat carefully on the edge of the bed, keeping a polite distance. After your speech, we met at the hotel bar. You loudly declared that no one on earth could ever change your mind about marriage. I said, maybe I could. You bet your partnership track. I bet my entire restaurant fund. Then things got fast. He scrolled through his phone and showed her a photo. There she was, in a crumpled cocktail dress, makeup smudged, champagne bottle in hand, giggling as she signed a stack of papers. This is fake, she breathed. That's the Clark County Marriage Bureau, Coop said calmly. He swiped again. 8 witnesses. One of them, an off-duty magistrate you somehow convinced at 2 a.m. with a passionate speech about dismantling outdated institutions through personal action. I would never. That's impossible. More photos appeared. Julia, lifted in the air by cheering strangers beside a crab buffet. Coop carrying her piggyback through a casino. Both standing before a glowing Vegas wedding chapel. Julia sliding a ring onto his finger. Coop kissing her hand. And just like that, her perfect controlled world began to spin wildly out of orbit. The last photo. 2 signatures on a 71-page legal document. You insisted on the prenup, Coop reminded her calmly. Kept saying your marriage shouldn't be legally defenseless. Took us 7 hours to write it. The waiter left 3 times. Julia gripped her temples as fragments began flashing back. Heated arguments about asset protection. Coop's laugh calling her dangerously smart. Her own voice saying it was just a controlled sociological experiment. Annulment. Now. Panic hit. She lunged for her briefcase. Where's my tablet? My files? My career? Yeah, so, there's a tiny little problem, Coop said, grimacing. Another one? That contract you drafted yourself? He lifted the heavy stack of papers, weighty enough to crush a future. It has a mandatory cohabitation clause. Full 6 months, before either of us can file for annulment. What? Your words. Your phrasing. To ensure accurate empirical analysis, he quoted, perfectly calm. Julia tore the pages from his hands, flipping through them in disbelief. Her handwriting, her signature, the stamps, the notary seal. Section 9.1. Both parties agree to cohabit under one roof for no less than 180 consecutive days to evaluate relational stability. Early termination will result in a fine of $850,000 charged to the withdrawing party. $850,000? She whispered, barely breathing. Well, you were really worried about anyone taking marriage lightly, Coop said with an apologetic shrug. Her phone rang. Douglas Prescott, managing partner. The man who made final decisions, Julia. His voice boomed like an orchestra. Brilliant move, marriage. Absolutely genius. To be honest, we had doubts. Young, unmarried, too focused on work. But now, balance, growth. Friday, yacht club dinner. Bring your husband. We're fast-tracking your partnership review. Mr. Prescott, there are complications. Nonsense! Fantastic news. Monday morning, my office. We'll go over details. Click. Julia stared at the dark screen, then at Coop, then at the ring. The papers. She sat down slowly as if gravity had tripled. I just single-handedly destroyed my life. Technically, Coop corrected, setting a perfectly plated omelet before her. We destroyed it. Lawful spouses, Julia blinked at him. Disheveled blonde hair, athletic, half-naked body, restaurant-quality omelet. A smile that said the universe had just played its darkest joke. For the first time since graduating top of her class, she had no exit strategy. Okay, she exhaled. Fine, this is manageable. 2 rational adults. Can maintain civility. 6 months. Strictly business. No emotions. Where do you live? Manhattan. East Side. You? Brooklyn. Red Hook. Perfect. Separate apartments. Public appearances am scheduled. Nobody needs to know? Her phone buzzed again. Message from her assistant, Eleanor Carmichael. Great news. The firm owns a penthouse in Hudson Yards, fully furnished. Move-in ready. You two can relocate this week. Welcome to the Carmichael family. They locked eyes. We're completely doomed, she whispered, hollow. Coop took a thoughtful bite of omelet. On the bright side, I make killer breakfasts. And I clean to Billy Joel. You'll wake up to Piano Man. He grinned. She grabbed a velvet throw pillow and launched it straight at him. Dead center. Official verdict. Her life had collapsed into a full-scale romantic disaster, witnessed by the world and bound by a 71-page legal contract, drafted by her. While drunk out of her mind, the worst part? The omelet was insanely good. Hours later, Julia stood in the sleek marble lobby of Carmichael Tower, watching as the movers loaded her carefully curated life into the elevator, right beside Coop's chaotic collection of kitchen gadgets and vinyl records. Her eye twitched. Is that a pasta-making machine? She asked, horrified, staring at the gleaming chrome monster. Correction, sweetheart, Coop said, hands on his hips, eyes gleaming with pride. That's a professional-grade pasta machine. Handmade, Bologna, cost me $8,000. And she's going upstairs even if we have to take the elevator apart. We are not keeping that thing. Oh, we're absolutely keeping Francesca. Francesca? You named it. And wait, it's a she? Of course, he said, gently caressing the machine's side. She's family. Julia squeezed her eyes shut and rubbed the bridge of her nose. God help her. This was only the beginning. It was day 3 of their so-called happy marriage, and Julia had already learned 3 alarming facts. Coop names all his kitchen appliances, sings in the shower for 45 minutes straight, and treats breakfast like a full-scale Broadway performance. Her phone buzzed, a message from Rachel, best friend, paralegal, and eternal voice of reason. Girl, explain. You watched a TED Talk about the power of solitude, then ran off and got married. Is this a breakdown? Blink twice if you need extraction. Julia typed back quickly. Long story. Contractual obligation. We'll explain later. Maybe, probably not. Mrs. Ashford. Julia froze. There it was again. Mrs. Ashford. Apparently that was her name now. Margaret Chen, the building coordinator, approached with a blinding smile and a tablet in hand. "Welcome to Carmichael Tower. We're so thrilled to have our newlyweds move in." "Thank you," Julia managed, forcing a smile that looked dangerously close to rigor mortis. "The penthouse is fully furnished. King-size bed, gourmet kitchen, top-of-the-line appliances. Though I see you brought your own. Wonderful. Oh, and we've just launched couples yoga at 6 a.m. "You'll love it. Couples yoga?" Julia repeated, dread creeping into her voice. "Oh, yes. Many of our married attorneys attend. Great for bonding," Margaret beamed. "And don't forget our monthly dinner nights. Spouses' attendance is mandatory. Really strengthens the corporate culture." Julia felt like she'd been dropped into a Pinterest board designed by her worst nightmare. "Sounds amazing." Coop cut in cheerfully, wrapping an arm around her. She stiffened. "We can't wait to start our new life together, right, darling?" "Thrilled," Julia muttered through clenched teeth. "Here are your keys, 42nd floor, penthouse 4207. Enjoy your stay." The elevator ride up was silent, except for the low mechanical hum. Coop softly humming what sounded suspiciously like a wedding tune. "Stop that," Julia snapped. "What?" "I'm just happy." He grinned. "New life, new chapter. This is a 6-month business arrangement, Coop." "Tomato, tomato," the elevator chimed. The doors slid open onto a pristine corridor. 2 doors, 2 penthouses. Julia swiped the keycard. The lock clicked. They stepped inside. "Whoa," Coop breathed. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the room in golden light. The Hudson stretched out like liquid glass below them. Exposed brick walls, a gourmet kitchen gleaming like a magazine spread, and furniture that screamed old money elegance. Art that probably cost more than Julia's law school debt, and right in the center, one massive bed. Julia froze. "Where's the second bedroom?" "It's a 1-bedroom penthouse," Coop said, flipping through the welcome binder. "Says here, perfect for intimate newlywed living." "No, absolutely not." She grabbed her phone and dialed. Voicemail. "This is Julia Rhodes Ashford in 4207. There's been a mistake. We need a 2-bedroom unit. Call me back immediately." She hung up and turned. Just in time to see Coop unpacking his ridiculous pasta machine and setting it proudly on the marble countertop. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Settling in," he said, plugging it in with a grin. The machine whirred to life. Julia stared. 72 hours in, and she was already losing her mind. Francesca needs to reach room temperature before we use her. She has a mind of her own. "We're not staying here." "Jules, we signed a contract." 6 months. Whether you like it or not, we're staying. At least we can make it cozy. "Don't call me Jules. What should I call you? Wife, spouse? Better half?" "Julia, just Julia." Coop lifted a record. "Miles Davis or Coltrane? I need to know your jazz tastes if we're living together." "I don't listen to jazz." He pressed a hand to his chest as if struck by pain. "I married a monster." Despite herself, a twitch of a smile flickered on Julia's lips, and she crushed it before it could grow. The phone rang. "Eleanor Carmichael," Coop whispered. "Answer it, B." "Married. Hello." Julia picked up. "Miss Carmichael speaking. Just checking in. Have you settled in? How's the penthouse?" "It's perfect. Thank you." "Wonderful. I'm so glad. Listen, tomorrow night I'm hosting a small gathering. Only the senior partners and their spouses. Very casual. At 7 p.m. at my townhouse. We'd love to have you." And Coop. Julia felt her brain short-circuit. "Dinner, with all the senior partners. And Coop, we'd love to have you." She heard her own voice saying it. "Perfect. Oh, and Julia, wear something nice. First impressions matter." Eleanor hung up. Julia lowered the phone slowly. Coop watched her, eyebrows raised. "Dinner with the partners tomorrow," she said flatly. "Cool. I'll wear my best jeans." "Absolutely not." "Just kidding," he laughed. "I've got suits. Even 3. One even fits." Julia sank onto the pristine white sofa. "This is a disaster. You'll say something weird. They'll ask how we met. And we have no story. Nothing at all." Coop sat beside her. "Then we'll make one up." "What?" "We're smart people. We'll craft a believable legend." He pulled out his phone. "Okay, how did we meet?" "Just not in a Vegas chapel. Maybe at cooking class?" "I don't cook." But you're learning from me because you love me so much. He smirked. Nonsense. Fine. Restaurant then. I'm the chef, you're with clients. I send a compliment from the restaurant. You return the dessert with notes on how to improve it. Julia blinked. Sounds almost plausible. Opposites attract. Then we started dating. Fell madly in love and spontaneously married in Vegas because we couldn't wait. No one would believe I fell madly in love. Why? Because I don't fall in love. I calculate, plan, analyze. Coop studied her face carefully. You got drunk and married a stranger, Jules. You're more spontaneous than you think. Before Julia could respond, the doorbell rang. They exchanged a glance. Were you expecting someone? Co-op asked. No, you? Neither. Coop opened the door. A courier stood there, holding a massive gift basket wrapped in white tulle and golden ribbon. Delivery for Mr. and Mrs. Ashford. That's us. Coop took the basket. Thank you. He placed the extravagantly luxurious basket on the kitchen island. A card was attached. Julia opened it and read aloud. Welcome to the Carmichael family. Wishing you a long and happy life together. Warmest regards, Douglas and Patricia Prescott. Inside, premium champagne, artisanal chocolates, crystal glasses, and a couple's luxury spa gift certificate. Couple's spa? Coop peeked over her shoulder. We have to use this. We're not going to a couple's spa. Why not? Free massage, hot stones, cucumber water. Because we're not a couple. We're just contractually obliged to pretend to be. He already had the champagne open. All the more reason to enjoy the perks if we're pretending. Julia watched as he poured 2 glasses. As if this were the most ordinary thing. Like they were real newlyweds. Beginning a life together. How can you stay so calm? Coop handed her a glass. Panicking changes nothing. We're married for at least 6 months. It could be a nightmare. Or an adventure. He raised his glass. I'll drink to adventure. Julia stared at the champagne, at the penthouse, at the stranger who was now legally her husband. One condition, she finally said. We sleep on opposite sides of the bed. Pillow barrier is mandatory. Agreed. And no shirtless walks around the apartment. Tricky, but I'll try. We need a story, detailed, bulletproof. Tomorrow at dinner, not a single mistake can slip through. I'm on it. Cup reached for his phone again. Let's craft the most epic fake love story Manhattan has ever seen. Julia clinked her glass against his. It felt like they had just signed a dangerous pact. Outside, the sunset poured gold and pink through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Romantic, if any of this were real. Her phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. Dinner next week. I need details. All the details. Julia watched Cup closely as he carefully unpacked. A professional espresso machine. You have no idea, she typed quickly. Hey, Jules. Cup's voice called from the kitchen. Do we have a wedding photo? People will definitely ask. A tight knot formed in Julia's chest. We got married in Vegas at 2 a.m. What kind of photos are we talking about? Cup scrolled through his phone and suddenly laughed. What? Julia asked, tense. He turned the screen toward her. A photo of the 2 of them in front of a chapel. Julia in a wrinkled cocktail dress. Coop in a crookedly buttoned shirt with a tilted tie. Champagne bottles in their hands. Julia laughing, Cup kissing her cheek, and amidst all the chaos, amidst the absurdity of it all. They looked genuinely happy. This one will do, Coop said confidently. Julia froze. She looked at herself, truly laughing, unguarded. She didn't remember the moment. But suddenly she wanted to. All right, she whispered. Cup favorited the photo and returned to his espresso machine. Julia moved to the window, watching the city lights flicker on in the twilight. 6 months. She could survive anything, even a fake marriage, with a man who names kitchen appliances and sings Billy Joel in the shower. How hard could it really be? Julia had changed outfits for the 7th time. You look amazing. Cup shouted from the bathroom, wrestling with his perpetually unruly hair. I look like I tried too hard. You're in a little black dress. That's the universal way to say, I didn't try at all. She stared at her reflection. The dress, Diane von Furstenberg, elegant, professional, perfect. But her hands shook. We need to run through the story one more time, she said. Cup emerged from the bathroom in a perfectly tailored navy suit. He looked dangerously good. Julia's brain short-circuited for a moment. "You look incredible," she blurted. "Thanks, so do you," he replied, adjusting his tie. "So, the story. Met 6 months ago at Gramercy Tavern. You were with clients, I was a guest chef. Sent you a deconstructed tiramisu. I sent detailed notes back on espresso to mascarpone ratio. And you found it charming, not rude." Coop finished with a smirk. "I refused to give my number, but you came to my office the next day with an improved tiramisu. Persistent but not creepy. That's my style," Cup winked. "We dated 4 months, fell in love. On my birthday, you surprised me with a trip to Vegas. Wait, when's your birthday?" "September 12th, yours?" "March 3rd, zodiac sign?" "Pisces, you?" "Virgo." Cup opened notes on his phone. "Gotta remember everything, dates, signs, anniversaries." Julia looked down at the ring on her finger. Still heavy. Still unreal. The wedding was on October 7th, just 3 days ago. Exactly. A spontaneous ceremony in Vegas, no guests. Just us and the witnesses, romantic, intimate. And if anyone asks why no one was invited, we were in Vegas for a legal conference. And then we realized this was the moment. Cooper took her hands. "Breathe, Jules, we've got this." It hit Julia suddenly. She hadn't been breathing the entire time. "And if they ask personal questions, you know about the bedroom? We're newlyweds. Madly in love. Can't keep our hands off each other." He pulled her closer. Her pulse raced. "This doesn't feel natural." "It is," he said, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. "See, totally natural. It was anything but. More like standing next to a roaring furnace." But Julia forced herself to relax. "We need to practice," Cooper suggested. "Practice what?" "Looking like a real couple." Without waiting for her reply, he intertwined their fingers. His hand was warm, rough from years of working in kitchens. "Now how does that feel?" "Strange. You'll get used to it," he smiled. "Now your turn." Julia hesitated, then reached out and adjusted his tie. Suddenly, their faces were inches apart. "Better already," she whispered. "See? We're born actors in this little play called Fake Marriage." Her phone buzzed. 6:45 p.m. "We should go," she said, stepping back. "The car's waiting downstairs." Cooper grabbed his jacket. "Ready to convince these lawyers we're hopelessly in love?" "Not really." "Perfect. Let's do this." The Eleanor Carmichael townhouse in West Village was exactly as Julia imagined. Elegant, expensive, and subtly intimidating. The door opened to a woman in her 50s, refined, in a silk blouse and impeccably tailored pants. "Julia, and you must be Cooper, welcome." "Thank you for having us, Mrs. Carmichael," Cooper said politely, offering a bottle of wine. "Eleanor, please come in." Inside, senior partners and their companions mingled. Julia immediately spotted Douglas Prescott, Richard Wentworth, and Patricia Santos, the trio who controlled her promotion. "Julia," Douglas approached with his wife, "congratulations on your wedding. We're so glad you could come." "Thank you, Mr. Prescott. This is my husband, Cooper. I hear you're in the restaurant business, Cooper." Douglas shook his hand. "Yes, sir. Planning to open my own place. Farm-to-table concept. Fascinating. Patricia's a gourmet, plenty to discuss." Julia barely had a chance to breathe when Eleanor returned. "Julia, dear, come meet the rest. Cooper, hope you don't mind if I borrow your wife for a bit." Cooper winked. "All yours." "But I expect her back." Eleanor laughed and led Julia into the circle of partners' wives. Julia glanced back. Cooper was already deep in conversation about sustainable farming with Douglas. Confident, composed, completely at ease. Julia, meanwhile, faced the female inquisition. "So, how did you meet?" Catherine Wentworth asked. Automatic lawyer mode activated. "At Gramercy Tavern. He was the guest chef. I was with clients. And he sent you dessert?" Patricia's eyes lit up. "How romantic." "I actually sent it back with edits," Julia replied. Gasps of horrified delight. "No way." "But the next day, he came to my office with an improved version." "And then you knew," Catherine sighed. "He was the one." Julia's chest tightened. "Yes." "That's when I knew. Was that the truth?" "No. The story was fabricated." But speaking it aloud and seeing their genuine reaction sent a sharp, almost painful thrill through her. Proof that the act could feel frighteningly real. From the other room came Coop's laughter. Deep, genuine. He was telling a story, and Douglas with 2 partners were hanging on every word. "You're lucky," Patricia said softly. "Finding someone who challenges you and supports you. That's rare." Julia nodded, unable to speak. "How long had you two been seeing each other before Vegas?" Catherine asked. 4 months. "Fast. But when you know, Eleanor said, squeezing her hand. "I married Gerald after 3. Best decision of my life." A knock at the door interrupted them. Eleanor went to answer it, and Julia seized the chance to search for Coop. He was in the kitchen, helping Eleanor's private chef arrange appetizers. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Helping? Chef Marcus can't handle this crowd alone. It's madness to cook solo." Coop carefully laid prosciutto on a platter. Professional, precise. "You're supposed to be socializing, not working." "I am socializing. Just efficiently." He handed her a stuffed mushroom. "Try this." "Marcus is a wizard," the chef beamed. "Your husband has impeccable taste." "Mrs. Ashford." There it was again, Mrs. Ashford. Julia bit into the mushroom, refusing to respond. "It really was exquisite, see?" Coop said. "Sometimes to judge something, you first need to taste it." Was he talking about food? Or something far deeper? Douglas appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Cooper, leave the kitchen. Come on, tell Richard about your rooftop garden project." "He's intrigued," Coop wiped his hands. "Duty calls. Save me some mushrooms, Jules." He casually kissed her cheek before leaving. Julia froze, her skin igniting where his lips had touched. Chef Marcus smirked. "Newlyweds. You two are adorable." Julia grabbed her wine glass and took a long gulp, as if trying to drown her racing thoughts. Dinner was exquisite. Multiple courses served in sequence. Perfectly paired wines. Conversations flowing under candlelight. Julia sat between Coop and Richard Wentworth, struggling to focus on the seared scallops rather than how Coop's hand under the table kept finding hers. "So, Julia," Richard began, "Eleanor mentioned you're being considered for early partnership." "Yes, sir. I've been working toward this goal for 6 years. Impressive dedication. But may I ask, how will marriage affect your availability?" "We need partners who prioritize the firm." Coop gently squeezed her hand. "A warning? Or support?" "Marriage hasn't changed my commitment to the firm," Julia said carefully. "If anything, stability in my personal life allows me to focus even more on work." "Well said," Patricia Santos interjected. "We need women partners who set an example of work-life balance." "You're a perfect example, Julia." "Though," Richard added with a subtle edge, "honeymoons don't last forever. What happens when Coop has a big case? Long hours, crazy schedule? Two demanding careers rarely coexist easily." "We'll manage," Coop said confidently. "Julia's career matters to both of us. I'd never ask her to sacrifice her dream for mine, even if it requires sacrifice." Richard pressed, "Especially then, supporting each other. That's what marriage is about." Coop looked at Julia with such sincerity. She almost believed him, right, darling? "Of course," she forced out. Eleanor raised her glass. "To Julia and Coop, may your marriage be as strong as your partnership." Glasses chimed. Julia clinked hers with Coop's, locking eyes with him. For a fleeting moment, she forgot it was all a lie. After dinner, everyone moved to the living room. Coffee, cognac, the fire casting a warm glow. Julia excused herself and headed to the bathroom. She needed to breathe. Leaning on the marble sink, she stared into the mirror. A woman stared back at her, wearing a wedding ring and a confident smile. The door opened. Catherine Wentworth stepped inside. "Excuse me," Julia said. "I didn't know you were here." No. I wanted to catch you alone." Catherine closed the door and stepped closer. A woman-to-woman warning. "I want to give you one piece of advice." From one woman to another. Julia felt a tight knot form in her chest. Okay. Being the wife of a lawyer on the partner track isn't easy. Richard and I have been together 30 years. The firm always comes first. Make sure Coop understands that now, or there will be trouble later. "He does," Julia said. "Does he really?" Catherine's sad smile tugged at something in Julia. "Because I saw how he looked at you during dinner. That man is in love with you." Julia's heart skipped a beat. "But love isn't always enough," Catherine continued, her tone soft but sharp. "When the firm calls at 3 in the morning. 5 days in a row," Julia's throat tightened. We'll manage, she whispered. I hope so. You're brilliant, Julia. Don't let anything throw you off course. Not even a charming boss who knows how to make you laugh. Catherine left. Julia remained alone with her reflection. The problem? Coop wasn't in love with her at all. Everything had been a performance. But then why did Catherine's words feel like a warning? About something real? The car was silent for a while. You okay? Coop finally asked. I'm fine. Just tired. You were amazing tonight, convincing. As were you. Coop gazed out the window at the blur of city lights. Richard is strict, he said. He's testing me, judging if I deserve partnership by how my marriage looks. Everything at this firm is a test. Sounds exhausting. It is. But it's worth it. Coop turned to her, voice softening. Is it really worth it? Julia tensed. You don't understand. I've worked my entire life for this. Partnership means everything. I understand ambition. I'm opening a restaurant after all. But Jules, you look tortured tonight, except for those rare moments when you forgot it was all a performance. I wasn't performing, she said. Come on. You were, we both were. But there were moments, like when you laughed at Douglas's terrible golf joke, or helped Marcus in the kitchen. In those moments, you looked genuinely happy. Julia had no reply. The car pulled smoothly up to the Carmichael Tower. Forget it, Coop muttered, opening the door. I shouldn't have said anything. You already know what you want. They ascended to the penthouse in silence. Julia kicked off her heels and without a glance back headed to the bedroom. I'm building a pillow wall, she declared. Go for it. With meticulous care, she constructed an impressive barrier across the bed, using every decorative pillow Eleanor had thoughtfully provided. Coop emerged from the bathroom in pajama pants and a t-shirt. Wow, fortress, he smirked. Necessary, she replied firmly. Your call, Jules. They lay on opposite sides. Click, the lights went out and the room sank into darkness. Hey, Jules. What? You were incredible tonight. They'd be fools not to make you partner. Warmth spread through Julia's chest. Thanks. And, I mean what I said at dinner, about supporting each other's dreams. I meant it. Coop, we're not really, I know, but we can be friends, at least for the next 6 months. Julia stared at the ceiling. Shadows from the city lights danced across the walls. Friends, she repeated. Friends who, by contract, were married and shared a bed divided by a wall of pillows. Despite everything, she smiled in the darkness. Friends, she agreed. From the other side of the pillow wall came the faint rustle of Coop making himself comfortable. Good night. Jules, good night, Coop. Julia closed her eyes, expecting sleep to evade her. But instead, she drifted off to the sound of his steady breathing, feeling less alone than she had in years. The alarm rang at 5:30 a.m. Julia reached to turn it off and accidentally knocked down 3 pillows from the wall. Through the gap, Coop's head appeared, hair tousled, eyes barely open. Good morning, wife, he mumbled. Sorry. Go back to sleep. Can't. You destroyed the Berlin Wall. I'm awake now. Julia hastily rebuilt the barrier. There. Crisis averted. Breakfast and battles. You know what would really fix this? Julia said, voice sharp. Stop building walls every night. The wall stays, Coop replied, unwavering. From the kitchen came a roar. Her ears immediately recognized it. His espresso machine sounded like a miniature jet taking off. Julia stepped out of the bathroom, dressed in a meticulously tailored business suit. Coop had already laid out breakfast, and it wasn't just food. It was art. Perfectly poached eggs. Avocado toast sprinkled with everything and anything. Fresh fruit arranged with casual elegance. And 2 lattes crowned with delicate foam. You made a swan, Julia said. Staring at the latte art. Was meant to be a heart, Coop admitted. Just, my swan skills aren't at full power before coffee. Julia sat at the bar, unable to resist photographing the spread. For the firm's Instagram? Coop asked, sliding in beside her. No, just, it's beautiful. Surprised? I'm not used to someone making me breakfast. What do you usually eat? Protein bars. Sometimes 2 if I'm feeling fancy. Coop clutched his chest dramatically. You kill me. That isn't breakfast, it's a survival ration. It works. It breaks my heart. He pushed the plate closer. Eat real food, real ingredients, and a light touch of affection. Light? We barely know each other. Exactly. Full affection can wait. Julia bit her toast to hide a smile. It was outrageously good. Her phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. Coffee in the morning. I need details. Don't make me beg, Julia typed quickly. Can't. Big presentation at 9. Lunch? Rachel replied instantly. Dodging, huh? Fine, 12 at Leo. Don't bail. Something wrong? Guap asked, noticing her expression. My friend wants a Vegas report. And what will you tell her? Probably. The truth. She's my best friend, and my paralegal. She'll dig it out anyway. Smart. Lying to best friends is a fool's game. Coop checked his own phone. I've got a meeting with a potential investor. Some financier who wants to support authentic culinary experiences, he said, quoting air quotes with a smirk. Sounds promising? For rich people, it sounds promising. Reality, they want truffles and gold leaf on everything. You sound cynical. 2 years, 17 investor meetings. They all want control or cheap tricks. I just want to cook real food. Julia saw the exhaustion flicker across his face, for whatever it's worth. Your food is incredible. Don't settle for less. Coop looked at her, unexpectedly soft in his gaze. Thanks, Jules. Then her phone rang. On the screen, Eleanor Carmichael. Her stomach dropped. I have to take this, she said, swiping the screen. Good morning, Miss Carmichael. Julia, quick question. How would you and Cooper feel about being featured in our firm digest? Section on career-family balance. Great publicity for both of you. Julia's brain froze. That's generous, but perfect. I'll have PR reach out. Photos, interview, the whole thing. It'll look excellent when considering you for partnership. Shows you're well-rounded. Eleanor hung up before Julia could object. What happened? Coop asked, seeing her pale. The firm wants to write an article. Photos, interview, about our marriage. Well, that's good, right? It's the firm digest, Coop. Hundreds read it, clients, judges, competitors. Lowering her voice, what if someone realizes we got married 3 days ago? In Vegas, drunk? Then the plan is simple. We're ecstatic newlyweds swept away by joy. We'll handle it. Her phone buzzed again. Text from Douglas Prescott's assistant. Mr. Prescott would like to have lunch with you and your husband. Please confirm a convenient time. Douglas wants lunch with both of us. Julia whispered, free food? I'm in. You're not taking this seriously. I take everything seriously, Coop said, grinning. Julia looked at him. Realizing in a life spiraling faster than she could process, some chaos was oddly delicious, but panic wouldn't help. Coop stood, rinsed his plate. You've got a 9 a.m. presentation. I've got an investor meeting at 10. We're both pros. We'll handle it like always. By improvising? Exactly. He threw on his jacket. Now go and wow them with your legal brilliance. I'll be home by 5, cooking dinner. You don't have to cook every night. I love it. And someone has to make sure you actually eat. He kissed the top of her head, as if he'd done it 1,000 times before. Julia sat frozen. See you tonight, wifey, he called over his shoulder. The door closed. Julia touched the spot where his lips had been. Everything was getting more complicated. The presentation went flawlessly. Julia delivered a sharp, detailed analysis of a corporate merger before a room of partners and senior lawyers. She answered every question confidently, citing cases from memory, finishing exactly on time. Afterward, Richard Wentworth intercepted her. Excellent work, Julia. This is exactly what we expect from future partners. Thank you, sir. I hear Eleanor wants to feature you in the digest. Great visibility, he paused. Your husband seems unusual, Julia tensed. Cooper is very successful in his field. I believe it. Just make sure his creative energy doesn't distract you from the main goal. Partnership demands full dedication. I understand. Really? I've seen the brightest lawyers burn out over personal issues. Marriage changes things. Julia met his gaze steadily. My commitment to the firm hasn't changed. Not even with my personal life. Wentworth smiled, but his eyes remained cold. Good, keep it that way. He left, and Julia was left with a strange, lingering unease, as if she'd just been warned. By noon, Julia met Rachel at Leo's Deli. Rachel looked at her and declared, You look like you just ran away from a wedding. I'm fine. You married a stranger in Vegas. You're not fine. Rachel ordered 2 sandwiches and coffee. Now spill everything. Every detail. Julia told her. From the key speech to the bet, the drunken wedding, the contract she herself had drafted, and the partnership now hanging by a thread. Rachel sat in stunned silence. 30 seconds passed before she could speak. You signed a contract with an $850,000 penalty. While drunk? Apparently, alcohol makes me especially meticulous, Julia said calmly. This is insane. Even for you, Rachel leaned forward, eyes sharp. 6 months. And then, annulment? Exactly. And you're using this fake marriage to secure a firm partnership? I hadn't planned it, but yes. The partners like that I now have a stable life. Rachel studied her face carefully. And this Cooper, what's he like? Julia hesitated. He's nothing like I expected. He cooks brilliantly, sings in the shower, named his pasta machine Francesca. He's spontaneous, cheerful, and he doesn't seem bothered at all that we're strangers pretending to be married. Do you like him? What? No, I barely know him. You just described him with unmistakable fondness in your voice. I was just stating facts. Jewel, I've known you 6 years. You never admire anyone, and now you were literally charmed by him singing in the shower. Heat rose to Julia's cheeks. I was merely stating the situation. Sure, keep telling yourself that, Rachel smirked. I want to meet him. No way, too late. I already invited myself to dinner at your little love nest. It's not a love nest. It's a contractual obligation, with pillows along the perimeter and croissant swans, with hearts. He made hearts, even cuter. Rachel glanced at her phone. Damn, I need to head back. Interrogation prep at 2. But Jules, be careful. Fake relationships have a way of becoming real, especially when someone is cooking breakfast for you. After Rachel left, Julia was alone, with coffee, with thoughts. She checked her phone. A message from Cooper. Investor meeting, total disaster. He wanted me to foam everything and use liquid nitrogen. I'm a chef, not a chemistry lab. Heading back early. I'll cook to vent. Hope you like risotto. Julia couldn't help but smile and typed back, I've never had risotto. The reply came instantly. What? That's a crime. I'm making 3 kinds. Be home by 6 or I'll eat your portion. She glanced at her calendar, work, meetings, deadlines. But her fingers typed anyway. I'll be there at 6, for the first time in 3 years. She actually left the office on time. When Julia stepped into the penthouse, the air was thick with a divine aroma. Cooper stood by the stove, stirring something in a deep pan. A glass of wine beside him. Soft music played in the background. You're early, he said, noticing her. Genuine joy in his voice. You threatened to eat my risotto. Empty threat. I made enough for 12 people. He gestured to the stove, where 3 pots simmered. Mushroom, pumpkin, and seafood. You'll try everything. Julia set down her bag.
How did the meeting go?
Terrible. He kept calling me chef and demanding the dishes be Instagrammable. Cooper poured her a glass of wine. But I don't want to talk about disappointing investors. How was your day? Richard Wentworth implied that you're a distraction. Lovely, so he's protecting the firm's interests, hinting that your husband is a burden? Exactly. That's not protection. That's control. Julia sipped her wine. It was exquisite. It's complicated. No, either they value you as a lawyer or they don't, and your marital status has nothing to do with it. But it matters. That's how these firms work. Then maybe the firm itself is the problem, she laughed. I've given 6 years to that firm. And I gave 8 years to dreams of a restaurant. And just told a potential investor to shove his nitrogen. Loyalty isn't a reason to tolerate bad treatment. He was right. Julia didn't want to admit it. But he was right. Try this. Cooper lifted a spoonful of mushroom risotto. Julia leaned in, letting him feed her. The flavor, exquisite. Mushrooms, creamy arborio, hints of thyme and parmesan, perfect. Wow, she breathed. This is how food should be. Simple, honest, delicious, no tricks, no show. Just good ingredients and respect for them. She noticed how close they were. His hand still held the spoon. Their eyes met. There's just a little left. He lifted his thumb, brushing a tiny drop of risotto from the corner of her mouth. Casual, intimate, natural. Something twisted in Julia's chest. I should change, she stammered, stepping back. Of course. Dinner in 20 minutes. Julia dashed to the bedroom, closed the door, and sank onto the bed. This was bad. She was actually starting to like her fake husband. Not for convenience, not for the contract, but for real. She loved the way he cooked with such passion, how he stood up for her in front of hypothetical investors, how he fed her risotto like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her phone buzzed. An email from her firm's communications department about an upcoming interview for the newsletter. The one where she would have to pretend to be madly in love with Cooper. The problem? Pretending was getting easier every day, and that scared her more than any courtroom ever could. Dinner was spectacular. Cooper carefully plated 3 portions of risotto, paired them with a light white wine, and even found candles. Looks very real, Julia noted. We're married. We have the right to date. Fake dates for a fake wedding. Cooper raised his glass. To surviving the first week without killing each other. Julia clinked her glass against his. To survival. They ate in cozy silence for a while. Then Cooper said, "Say something real. Tell me something real about you. Not about law. Something true." Julia paused to think. I hate thunderstorms. They scare me. I have to sleep with white noise headphones on. That's sweet. Not sweet, irrational. Fear is always irrational. Cooper served her another spoonful of pumpkin risotto. Your turn. Ask me something. Why restaurants? With your talent, you could do anything. His voice softened. My grandmother. She taught me to cook. Said food is a way to show love when words fail. There was a shadow in his eyes. In the end, she suffered from Alzheimer's. She didn't remember my name, but she remembered recipes. We cooked together, and in those moments, she was herself again. Something cracked in Julia's chest. Cooper, I'm so sorry. Don't be. She taught me that cooking isn't just feeding people. It's caring for them, making them feel important. He met her gaze. This is how I want my restaurant to feel. A place where people feel cared for. You'll make it happen, Julia said firmly. The right investor will come. You sure? You're too talented and too stubborn to fail, Cooper smiled. That's probably the nicest compliment you've ever given me. I've given better. Yesterday you said my breakfast was acceptable. That's my highest praise. They laughed together. Julia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and groaned. It's Eleanor. Answer. You're married now. Julia took a deep breath. Hi, Eleanor. Julia, I hope I'm not interrupting dinner? Not at all. She looked at Cooper. He gave her an encouraging nod. Great. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Next month, the firm is hosting a weekend retreat for couples. Team building, networking, all that. Weekend in the Hamptons. You and Cooper need to attend. Julia's stomach clenched. A whole weekend? Yes, it'll be fun. All partners with their spouses. Consider it part of assessing your partnership. We'll be there. Excellent. I'll send the details. Have a good evening. Eleanor hung up. Julia carefully set the phone aside. We need to go on this couples retreat. When? Next month. Hamptons, the whole weekend. Not so bad. Cooper will be surrounded by real families doing real family things, 48 hours straight. Then we'll do real family things too. We're already good at this. He refilled her glass with wine. We survived dinner. We lived together. We had our first real conversation. The retreat is just more of the same. What if there's trust exercises? Or couples therapy? Then we'll play the trust games. We'll go to therapy. Jules, we can handle it. Julia wanted to believe him. But the thought of a whole weekend of performing this fiction under watchful eyes made her want to hide under the table. Hey. Cooper reached out, squeezing her hand. We're a team now. Fake, yes, but a team. I've got your back. Julia squeezed his hand in return. I've got yours too. They finished dinner talking about small things. Favorite movies, childhood stories, the eternal debate over pineapple on pizza. Cooper said yes. Julia said a firm no. Later, building a pillow fort, Julia realized she was genuinely upset about this barrier. And that was a real problem. Jules, Cooper's voice came from the other side of the fort. Today was a good day. Even with that awful investor and the newsletter news, it was still a good day. Julia smiled in the dark. Yeah, it really was. She fell asleep thinking of Rosado and how Cooper had so effortlessly, so gently wiped sauce from her lips. For the first time since Vegas, Julia's dreams weren't filled with contract cancellations or escape strategies. Instead, she dreamed of lazy Sunday mornings, shared laughter, and breakfasts cooked like acts of love, which, admittedly, was a problem. 3 weeks later, Julia stood in their bedroom, staring at her bag as if it might explode. "It's just a weekend," Coop said calmly, folding a sweater. 48 hours of intense bonding, with people whose job is interrogating witnesses. "We've got this. We've practiced." He held up 2 toothbrushes. "Shared bathroom, check. Coordinated meal times, check. Remembering each other's coffee preferences, check." Julia had to admit the last 3 weeks had been different. They'd fallen into a rhythm. Coop cooked breakfast while she reviewed case files. She learned he was cranky without his first espresso and sang terribly in the shower. He noticed how she sorted her clothes by color and fabric, and staged late-night cleanups if a deposition went badly. The pillow wall had shrunk from 7 to 3, then to 2. Last night, Julia had woken to find her hand unconsciously reaching across the invisible barrier, fingers tangling with Coop's. She had jerked it away immediately, but spent the night staring at the ceiling, wondering when touches from her fake husband had started to feel so natural. Earth to jewels. Coop waved in front of her face. "You've been staring at that bag for 5 minutes. "Sorry," Julia sighed. "Just running scenarios in my head. Let me guess. What if we have to share relationship secrets? What if there's a trust exercise? What if someone asks about our first kiss? All of the above. Then we improvise." Coop zipped the bag. "We're already pretty good at that. Remember lunch with Douglas last week?" Julia smiled despite the nerves. That lunch had been a minefield of personal questions, but they'd navigated it without a single misstep. Coop had told a made-up story about their first date with such conviction that Julia almost believed it herself. 2 hours then, she thought. And now a whole weekend, with more than one bed. The letter had said the couples would get separate cottages with separate bedrooms. Oh, thank goodness. Coop raised an eyebrow. "You're clearly relieved." "Of course," Julia exhaled. "The pillow wall barely holds in our apartment. And here we'd have to build it next to the senior partners." "Exactly. The pillow wall. That thing we've both been pretending is still necessary." Julia's face flushed. "It's necessary. For what? Decoration?" Coop smiled. "Yesterday your hand was definitely on my side of the bed. I was asleep. I'm not complaining. Just saying. Maybe it's time to stop building walls." Julia busied herself packing toiletries, avoiding his gaze. "We should leave soon. Friday traffic to the Hamptons is a nightmare." Coop didn't push, but his smile said he knew exactly what he was doing. The firm's country estate was a true coastal mansion. 8 separate guest cottages surrounding the main house. "This is insane," Julia whispered as they approached the circular driveway. "This is how the other half lives," Coop said, helping her out of the car. "Just smile and act like we belong." On the veranda, Eleanor appeared, waving energetically. "Julia Cooper, welcome." Within 30 minutes, Julia met so many partners and their spouses that she couldn't keep track of names. Everyone was outrageously friendly, asked intensely personal questions, and somehow looked perfectly relaxed in classic Hampton style. Their cottage was at the far end of the property. Julia considered it either a blessing or a curse. "Privacy," Coop noted, opening the door. "Good thing." The cottage was breathtaking, exposed beams, coastal decor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, and, as promised in the email, the cottage had 2 separate sleeping areas, a loft bedroom and a pull-out sofa downstairs. "I'll take the sofa," Cooper offered immediately. "Are you sure? The loft seems cozy. You've been nervous about this weekend for 3 weeks. Lie down in the comfortable bed." Julia felt a rush of gratitude. "Thanks. That's what fake husbands are for," he winked. "Now let's get ready for the reception. I heard there will be seafood." The reception took place right on the beach. A fresh oyster bar, champagne, and a string quartet, a strange combination for a legal event. Julia took a glass and tried to look as if she truly belonged in this world of Hampton summer retreats. "Julia," Patricia Santos approached her with her husband, Michael. "Your cottage is just gorgeous, isn't it? Michael and I live next door." "Wonderful," Julia smiled. "The managing partner is our neighbor. Perfect, agreed Patricia. And Cooper is already settling in. I know. Such events can be tough for spouses unfamiliar with the legal world. Julia noticed Cooper on the other side of the patio, laughing with Douglas Prescott while examining a lobster closely. He's very adaptable, Julia said. That's important. Life in a law firm is not easy on marriages. Patricia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Michael and I have been together for 32 years. The secret is that the firm always comes first. Julia had heard this lecture from every partner's spouse. Career requires sacrifices, and marriage must adapt. Cooper understands my career goals, Julia said cautiously. For now, yes, Patricia replied. But wait until you're working 80-hour weeks on an important case, missing anniversaries, canceling vacations for depositions. Not every spouse can handle being permanently second. Before Julia could answer, Cooper appeared beside her, wrapping his arm around her waist as if he had done it 1,000 times. Sorry to interrupt, he said with a smile. Jules, Douglas wants your opinion on the corporate merger. Very exciting legal stuff I don't understand. Patricia smiled, of course. We'll talk later, Julia. When she left, Cooper's hand remained on Julia's waist. She could feel the warmth through her dress. Looks like you needed rescuing, he whispered. She lectured me on making sacrifices for marriage. Yeah, I heard Michael's version for husbands. He says I need to understand if you miss important events because of work. Realistic. Partnership means long hours. Yes, but you're still a person who deserves a life outside the office. Cooper grabbed 2 glasses of champagne from a waiter and handed her one. These people act like being a good lawyer means being a terrible spouse. Maybe it's true, or maybe they're just justifying their choices. He clinked glasses with her. You can shine at work and still come home sometimes for life's joys. Eleanor's voice rang across the patio. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our annual couples weekend. Let's gather for a brief overview of the upcoming events. The crowd slowly moved toward the beach, where Eleanor stood with a tablet, a sign of a frightening degree of organization. We have an amazing plan for you, Eleanor announced with an icy smile. Tomorrow morning, couples yoga at sunrise, followed by breakfast and a communication strategies workshop. After lunch, team-building exercises and a cooking class. In the evening, a formal dinner and awards ceremony. And on Sunday, a reflection session and a late breakfast before departure. Julia's hand tightened around her glass. Cooper's fingers found hers and squeezed gently. Cooper yoga, she whispered, trembling. I'm incredibly flexible, Cooper whispered back. Everything will be fine. Tonight, Eleanor continued, we'll start with icebreakers. Everyone, find a partner from another couple. The icebreaker. You have 15 minutes to learn everything about them, then present to the group. Perfect way to bond. Julia wished the sand would swallow her whole. Smile, Coop murmured. We're madly in love, remember? Yes, madly in love, she muttered, forcing a smile. Eleanor paired them randomly. Julia and Coop ended up with Richard Wentworth and his wife, Catherine. Perfect. The most suspicious observers of their marriage. Julia Cooper, Richard BMED. Richard approached with Catherine. Ready for the icebreaker? Of course, Coop replied, radiating confidence that Julia utterly lacked. They moved to a quiet spot near the dunes. Richard pulled out his phone to take notes, a very ominous sign. So, Richard began, how long have you been together? Full-time, not just officially married. 7 months, Julia said, steady despite the nerves. Met last March. And how would you describe your relationship dynamic? Catherine asked. She organizes, I bring chaos. Somehow it works, Coop smiled. Give an example, Richard pressed. Well, Coop thought for a moment. Last week Julia had a major deadline. She hadn't eaten all day. I made her favorite dish. He paused for dramatic effect, although she didn't know it was her favorite until I made it. Pumpkin risotto. She ate 3 servings while going through documents. Julia's heart skipped. A strange mix of embarrassment and awe. It was true. She had indeed eaten 3 portions. Excellent, Catherine said. Richard, take notes. I sometimes bring her coffee, Richard countered. From the car to your office. Julia deserves better than office coffee, Coop said, smiling. I make her real lattes with hearts. Despite everything, Julia laughed. They're still swans, she whispered. Coop, she heard him say. One day I'll master perfect hearts. It's a process. Richard watched silently, emotionless. You seem very comfortable with each other, Catherine observed. Yes, Julia agreed. He makes me laugh under stress. I keep him grounded when he's too impulsive. It's a good balance. And your first serious argument? Catherine asked. Julia and Coop exchanged glances. Over the past 3 weeks, they'd had several. Over Coop leaving cabinet doors open, Julia rearranging spices, even over whether legal dramas counted as stress relief. The pillow wall, they said simultaneously. What? Richard asked. When we first moved in, Julia explained, I wanted personal space in bed. Built a pillow wall in the middle. 7 pillows, Coop added. Looked like the Great Wall of China. I was practical, Julia defended. You were funny. We're married. Sharing a bed doesn't require a fortress. I wasn't ready, Julia admitted, realizing they were almost having a real argument. In the end, 2 pillows, Coop said. Sometimes 1. Yesterday? None, I think. Julia's face warmed. We're still learning, she admitted. Catherine smiled warmly. That's normal. Michael and I argued about everything the first year. The key is fair fights and proper reconciliations. How do you reconcile? Coop asked, noting everything Julia silently realized. You know, Catherine said. We have a rule. Before bed, no matter what, even if angry, we must say at least one thing we're grateful for about each other. That's really wonderful, Julia replied sincerely. Richard glanced at his phone. Time's up, he said. They're calling us back. As they returned to the main group, Coop leaned toward Julia, whispering, 0 pillows last night. You were asleep, couldn't have known. Jules, he continued softly. I woke up with your hand on my chest and your head on my shoulder. No pillows for sure. Something clicked in Julia's mind. I was asleep, she whispered. Waves, wine, and walls, I know. You mumbled something about interrogations and hugged me tighter, Julia said. Stop making things up, I'm not. But don't worry. Your secret's safe with me. He smiled. At that moment, Eleanor called everyone to attention. Time to introduce ourselves. Who'll start? Richard volunteered first. We've had the pleasure of meeting Julia and Cooper, he announced to the group. Recently married, but together for 7 months. They met when Cooper sent Julia a dessert at his restaurant, and she critiqued his technique. Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. They argue about pillow walls, Richard continued, and reconcile by cooking soulful meals and creating increasingly disastrous latte art. Cooper calls Julia terrifyingly organized, and she calls him aggressively optimistic. But most strikingly, they finish each other's sentences, argue like they've known each other for years, not months. He paused, eyes locking on Julia. Clearly, they genuinely care for each other. It's not an act, Julia's heart raced. Was he serious or testing her? Now it's our turn, Cooper interjected. Zwinger, he introduced Richard and Catherine warmly, highlighting their 30-year marriage with such genuine admiration that even Richard looked pleased. Introductions stretched on for an hour. By the time Eleanor announced the end, Julia's cheeks ached from smiling. Nightcap? Cooper suggested hopefully as they walked back to the cottage. Inside, Cooper found a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. They stepped onto the terrace overlooking the ocean. First day behind us, he said, pouring generously. Richard knows something. His speech about not faking care. He was sincere. We do care about each other, Jules. Friends who lie to everyone about how they met and got married. He took a sip. You really meant it? You make me laugh when I'm stressed? Julia stared at the dark ocean, waves crashing in rhythm. Yes, you do. Good. Because you keep me grounded. And it was true. They sat in comfortable silence. Sipping wine, listening to the ocean. Coop, Julia finally said. Yes? Did I really sleep with my head on your shoulder last night? He smiled through his glass. Yes, you did. Was it gay? More than okay, Jules. Her heart thudded strangely. Panic should have hit. Everything was getting too real, too comfortable, too dangerous. Instead, she felt calm. We need sleep, she said. You've got yoga at dawn. I'll set 17 alarms. Inside, Julia climbed to the mezzanine bedroom. "Jules," Coop called from below. "Yes? No pillow walls this weekend, right?" "We've got separate beds." Julia smiled into the dark. "Yes, no pillow walls?" "Good, because I'm already getting used to this." Lying in the unfamiliar bed, Julia listened to Coop moving below. She was getting used to it too. The shared space, the quiet comfort, the accidental touches that no longer felt accidental. And that was the scariest part. In 41 days, their 6-month contract would end, and Julia realized, ending it might not be liberation, but the loss of something she hadn't planned to want to keep. The next morning, Julia woke to Coop gently shaking her shoulder. "Jules, morning yoga starts in 20 minutes. "Kill me now," she muttered. "Come on, we're madly in love." "Doing yoga together," he said, smiling. 20 minutes later, they were on the beach in workout clothes, surrounded by other couples on mats. The instructor radiated excessive cheerfulness. Julia took a deep breath, the salty wind and crashing waves filling her senses, and realized the chaos of her life had never felt this thrilling, this alive, or this dangerously beautiful. "Good morning. Today we'll be working on partner poses that build trust and communication," Julia whispered, her voice tinged with dread. "This is going to be a disaster." "Relax, I've got you," Coop replied calmly. The first pose was simple. They sat back to back, synchronizing their breathing. Julia leaned against Coop's back. His breath was steady, grounding. She tried to match his rhythm. "See?" he whispered. "Not so bad." The next pose required them to sit facing each other, holding hands, pulling for balance. Julia looked into Coop's eyes. Up close, she could see the golden flecks in his brown irises, count each lash if she wanted. "You're staring," he said softly. "So are you." "Makes sense." Then the instructor announced the most critical pose, the trust fall. One partner falls backward. The other catches them. Complete trust was essential. Julia felt a knot of anxiety tighten. "Absolutely not," she muttered. "Come on, Jules, I won't let you fall." "You don't know that. I do. I've got you. Always." Something in his voice made her believe him. Julia crossed her arms over her chest and let herself fall backward. Coop caught her effortlessly, lowering her into a controlled arch. "See?" he said upside down in front of her eyes. "I told you I wouldn't let you fall." "Your turn," Julia said, standing. "Are you sure you can catch me?" "I'm heavier." "You doubt my strength?" "Never." Coop smirked and stepped back. Julia caught him, holding his weight with steady legs. He was heavier, but she stood firm. "Nice catch, wife," he said, looking up at her. "Nice fall, husband," she replied. The tension lingered. She held his shoulders. He relaxed completely, trusting her entirely. Julia helped him up, and they moved to the next pose. Something had shifted. Trust wasn't just part of the exercise anymore. It had become real. Later, the cooking class took place in the estate's gleaming kitchen, all stainless steel and marble countertops. Coop's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "This is incredible," he breathed, running a hand over the Viking stove. "It's just a stove," Julia replied. "A professional 6-burner with a grill plate." "Respect it," Coop corrected. The instructor, a lively chef named Antoine, announced they'd be preparing a 3-course dinner in pairs. "Today you'll learn teamwork," he said. "Cooking together requires communication, trust, and patience, just like a marriage." Julia noticed Patricia Santos rolling her eyes. At least she wasn't alone in thinking it a bit much. "Coop, you clearly have experience," Antoine noted, watching him expertly chop onions. "Maybe let Julia take the lead on some steps?" "Jules is brilliant at everything," Coop said. "But cooking isn't her strongest suit." "I can crack eggs," Julia interjected, grabbing 2 from the carton. She cracked them straight into the bowl with a few shells. "Perfect, darling," Coop said diplomatically, fishing out the shells. "I'll handle the eggs. You take the salad." Julia attacked the salad with fierce determination. Laughter echoed across the kitchen. Catherine chatting with Richard, Douglas and his wife moving in perfect sync, even Patricia and Michael coordinating. And then there were Julia and Coop, a chaotic clash of styles and techniques. "You're slicing the tomatoes too thick," Coop said. "I'm cutting them thin for the sandwich." "Sure, for a complex salad." "It's just a salad, Coop, not brain surgery. Presentation matters, as does not being a controlling perfectionist." The kitchen fell silent. All eyes turned to them. Eleanor chuckled nervously. "Well, every couple has their own style in the kitchen," she said. Julia felt her face burn with shame. There it was. They had ruined everything. Everyone could see they were a complete disaster. Then Cooper did something unexpected. He came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and rested his chin on her shoulder. "You're right," he whispered so softly that only she could hear. "I've been acting like a control freak. I'm sorry." Julia almost couldn't breathe. His heartbeat pressed gently against her back, steady and real. "Just stress," she murmured. "I know I don't always get it right in the kitchen. You can do anything you want. You just need a little practice. Less annoying, teacher," he added. Despite everything, Julia smiled. She turned in his arms. "Show me how to cut tomatoes properly," she said. Cooper's eyes softened. "Of course. Yes, absolutely." He took her hands in his, guiding the knife, explaining the angle, the thickness. His voice was quiet, patient. The kitchen filled with the familiar sounds of cooking again, but Julia barely noticed. All she could focus on was the warmth of his body, the way even slicing vegetables felt unexpectedly intimate. When they finally plated their dish, seared salmon with risotto and a slightly questionable salad, Julia had somehow created something that looked almost professional. "Great job," Antoine praised. "You and Cooper have found your rhythm." As they sat down to eat, Cooper leaned in. "See, we're a great team, even when I destroy the tomatoes." "Especially then." Julia's phone buzzed. An email from Eleanor. "Partnership vote scheduled for Monday. Expect good news." This was the moment. Everything she had worked for. The goal that had consumed the last 6 years of her life. She should have felt elated. Instead, she felt emptiness. Because Monday was also day 178 of their 6-month contract, just 2 days before they could officially dissolve everything. Julia excused herself and went to the bathroom. She stared long at her reflection, flushed cheeks, hair tousled from the cooking class, the wedding ring that no longer felt foreign on her finger. When had this stopped being just an arrangement? When had Cooper stopped being a stranger and become someone she wanted to see first thing in the morning? The bathroom door opened. Catherine Wentworth stepped in. "Julia, are you okay?" "Yes, I just needed a moment." Catherine studied her carefully in the mirror. "Can I give you some advice?" "Woman to woman." Julia nodded, barely trusting her own voice. "I've been married to Richard for 30 years, and I've watched dozens of young lawyers like you chase partnership," Catherine said softly. "And you know what I realized? The firm doesn't really care about you. Not truly. They care about billable hours, client retention, profits. I know this. And you?" Julia felt her throat tighten. "Because I see how you look at Cooper as your refuge, your home." Catherine laid a hand on her shoulder. "And I see how you look at the partnership letters as just another box to tick." Julia remained silent, unable to reply. "I sacrificed my career so Richard could rise through partnership," Catherine continued, her expression tinged with sadness. 30 years ago, that's what wives did. And you know what? I regret it. Not because I don't love Richard, but because I built my life around his career and forgot my own. But I have my own career," Julia whispered, her heart tightening. "Do you? Or do you have the career you think you're supposed to want?" Catherine smiled sadly. "Just make sure you choose what truly makes you happy, not what looks good on paper." She left, leaving Julia alone with her thoughts that began to tumble dangerously, uncontrollably. The official dinner was excruciating. Julia slipped into a deep navy cocktail dress and the practiced smile she had honed over 6 years of corporate events. Cooper looked impossibly attractive in his charcoal suit, his hand warm and confident on her waist as they entered the room. Eleanor had arranged the seating in advance. Julia and Cooper found themselves at the head table, flanked by the 3 senior partners and their spouses. During the main course, Douglas stood with his wine glass. "I want to propose a toast," he announced loudly, "to our newest potential partner, Julia Rhodes Ashford. Your dedication, brilliance, and growth over the past 6 years have been extraordinary. The partnership vote is scheduled for Monday, but I think we all already know the outcome. Julia Rhodes Ashford, plus Cooper." Julia had never heard it said aloud before. But when the word partner hung in the air, something inside her trembled. Everyone raised their glasses. Julia forced a smile, projecting gratitude. Cooper quietly squeezed her hand under the table. "Speech," someone shouted. Julia stood almost automatically. Her lawyer's mind went on autopilot. "Thank you all so much," she began, her voice steady. "This firm has been my life for the past 6 years. Partnership has been my singular goal since the day I joined as an intern. I've worked countless hours, sacrificed personal time, devoted myself entirely." She faltered. Across the table, Cooper's gaze found hers. Warm, pained, as if he were watching her choose something that might push him away forever. The carefully rehearsed words of a brilliant speech vanished. "I devoted myself to becoming the lawyer I was meant to be," she said quietly. "But recently I realized life is more than billable hours and client files. Someone showed me that taking time for laughter, a failed latte, or trust isn't weakness. It's what makes us human." She lifted her eyes directly to Cooper. "He taught me that I can be ambitious and still come home. That success is meaningless if you're alone at the top. That sometimes what you think you want isn't what makes you truly happy." Silence. The room held its breath. Julia felt the weight of her own words, spoken aloud, in front of everyone. She ended awkwardly. "Thank you for your trust. It's a great honor." She sank back into her chair. Cooper stared at her. "Jewel," he whispered. "What just happened?" "I don't know." "Well," Eleanor cleared her throat, stepping in. "Beautiful speech. Shall we move on to dessert?" After dinner, Julia ran. To the beach. She needed air, space, freedom. Just for a few minutes away from him. The waves lapped at her bare feet. Designer heels swung from her hand. Partnership vote Monday, 2 days. Everything she had worked for, and yet it felt like a consolation prize. Running away so fast. Julia spun around. Cooper stood a few steps behind her. Jacket off, sleeves rolled, wind tossing his hair. "I needed to think about my speech," she said. "Because it didn't sound like gratitude," he said. Eyes locked on hers. "I just got emotional. Wedding weekends do that to people. Jules, don't go into lawyer mode." "Not with me." He stepped closer, her heart skipped. "We've lived together nearly 6 months. Shared meals, fallen asleep in the same bed, built something. It all started with a silly argument over a glass of wine and became what?" Her voice shook. "We signed a contract, Jules, a business deal. Term 2 days. To hell with the contract. We can't just..." "Why not?" "You wrote it. You can tear it up. It's not that simple." "Why?" "Because of the partnership, Cooper. They'll make me partner anyway. I don't need to be married and stable for that. You don't understand. This us was supposed to be temporary, a means to an end. I wasn't supposed to..." She stopped, horrified at what she almost admitted. "Wasn't supposed to what?" he asked softly. The silence between them was deafening. The sea whispered as if waiting for an answer. "To fall in love with my fake husband," Julia whispered. "Too late," he replied. "I already fell in love with my fake wife." The world seemed to tilt. "What?" She exhaled. Cooper ran a hand through his hair, smiling nervously. "I fell for you, Jules. Between pillow walls, Rosado, and your midnight raids on the spice rack at 2 a.m. I just lost my mind." Julia couldn't breathe. "You can't," she whispered. "Too late, Cooper. We had a deal. The deal ended for me in the 2nd week. Every breakfast, every hand in mine. Every night I fell asleep listening to your breathing. It was all real." Tears filled Julia's eyes. "This is a disaster." "Why? Because you feel it too?" "I don't." "You do," he interrupted gently. "I see it. The look when you think I don't notice. And the way you no longer correct me when I call you Jules. The way you sleep. Pressed against my shoulder, even when there's plenty of bed space. Doesn't mean it's just habit," Cooper said softly, stepping closer. "I love you. And if I'm not crazy, you love me too. So why do we keep pretending it's not real?" Julia's carefully constructed walls began to crumble. "Because I'm scared," the words escaped. "All my adult life I've worked toward partnership. I know how to be a lawyer, how to win cases, work 20-hour days, climb the career ladder. But this, so I don't know how." "Then we'll figure it out together," Cooper said calmly. "And if I ruin everything?" If I choose you and destroy everything I've built, then we'll destroy it together." He cupped her face in his hands, his gaze warm, steady, and achingly honest. "Jules, I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be real. Do you want this, us? Not a contract, not pretending." He barely breathed. Julia looked into his eyes, full of patience and dangerous certainty. She thought of partnership, 6 years of sleepless nights, ambition and perseverance. Then she thought of Sunday mornings with failed latte swans, rosado made with gentle care, the sound of his breathing she'd fallen asleep and woken up to, never alone. "I want this," she whispered. "I want us." Cooper's smile shone brighter than the moonlight reflecting off the ocean. "Yes, yes. I'm terrified, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but yes, I want this." He kissed her. Not like before, not for show, not for anyone else. This kiss was real, desperate, warm, long. 6 months of restraint fell away at once. Julia responded with the same heat, clutching his shirt, feeling her heart race too fast, too loudly. When they finally pulled back, both were breathing heavily. Cooper pressed his forehead to hers. "And now?" he asked quietly. "The contract expires in 2 days. Do we cancel it and start dating like normal people?" Julia laughed through tears. "Seriously? You wrote a 70-page marriage contract drunk. We are not normal people." "Point taken," she looked into his eyes. "What if we just stay married?" Cooper's eyes widened. "Really? Well, we're already doing pretty well and the papers are ready. Sounds efficient. You want to stay my wife for efficiency?" "No, you silly. I want to stay because I love you." The words sounded strange and perfect at the same time. "I love your terrible singing, your names for kitchen gadgets, and the way you make me leave work on time. I love that you caught me when I was falling. I love that you see right through me, even when I hide. I love you." Cooper kissed her again, softly, with a smile. "And I love you. Even your color-coded wardrobe, midnight cleaning sprees, and the way you ruined those tomatoes. I was going to learn to cook. I'll teach you. Now we have time. How much time?" "As much as you want, forever." Julia smiled. "You forever sounds pretty good." They stood on the beach holding each other, as the sound of the sea roared above them. The truth about who they had become slowly settled in the air between them. "I think we should tell people," said Coop, "that we're truly staying married. How do we explain that it all started with a drunken bet? We don't. To everyone, we've always been madly in love." "Coop, that's a lie." "Is it? I think I fell in love with you the moment you criticized my imaginary tiramisu on our fake first date." Julia laughed. "You're impossible. And you love it." "Unfortunately, yes." They walked back to the cabin, hand in hand. No games, no contracts, just together. They climbed to the attic and lay down in bed. No wall of pillows, no separate sides. Julia nestled on his chest and he held her tightly, peacefully. "Hey, Jewel," he whispered into the darkness. "Yes? On Monday when they make you partner. Say yes. You deserve it." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. Because I know you'll still come home. Maybe late, maybe tired. But home, to me. Always." She promised. And that night they didn't need to explain anything. Julia realized that the best things in life are often the ones you least expect. Blog. 6 months later. Julia Rhodes Ashford, partner at Carmichael and Prescott, was leaving the office at 6 p.m. on Friday. "Are you okay?" asked her assistant Rachel. "Absolutely. Coop has the restaurant opening today. I can't miss it." Provisions, the restaurant of Coop's dreams, was everything he had ever wanted. An open kitchen, brick walls, a seasonal menu. And in the corner, their table with a permanent sign that said, "Reserved." When Julia entered, she was greeted by complete chaos. The staff was running around. Coop was directing the kitchen with clear stress but also undeniable joy. When he spotted her, his face immediately transformed. "You came!" "I promised." She helped where she could, greeting guests, managing reservations, trying not to interfere with the kitchen. Midnight arrived. When the last customers left and the staff dispersed, Julia and Coop sat at their table, sharing a bottle of wine. "We did it. You made partner. I opened my restaurant. We're an insanely successful fake couple," Coop said, smiling. "To us, the couple that started as a bet and became real. Julia replied. And to the fact that sometimes the best decisions happen when you're shocked by what comes after a night in Vegas. Co-op added. They clinked glasses and kissed. The external world of Manhattan buzzed with its usual energy on a Friday night. But here at the corner of their table, Julia and Coop found something rare. A love story that began with lies and became the most real thing in their lives. Julia's phone buzzed. A message from Eleanor, a beautiful article in the Times about Coop's restaurant. We are so proud of our Carmichael family. Dinner next week, Julia showed Coop, who groaned. More company dinners. It's just dinner. We'll survive. Just please, no yoga for couples. Can't promise that. Coop pulled her close. You know what? I don't care. Coop yoga, trust-building exercises, anything, as long as it's with you. Julia smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. You've gotten so sentimental with age, and I'm 31, almost an old man, and you're 29, almost. A kid, they laughed, a laugh that only comes from knowing someone to the core and loving them. Later, walking hand in hand through the city streets, Julia rested her head on Coop's shoulder. Hey, Jules, Coop said. Yes? I'm really glad you're a terrible drunk who makes questionable decisions. And I'm glad you're an impulsive idiot who makes stupid bets. The perfect Vegas couple. The best-worst decision of our lives. They climbed the stairs to their penthouse, the one they'd decided to keep even after the contract expired, because it had become their home. No more pillow walls, no more separate sides, no more pretending. Just two people who accidentally found love in the messiest way and decided to keep it. That night, as Julia fell asleep, she thought about the woman she was 6 months ago, standing on stage, declaring that she would never get married. In a way, she had been right, because the Julia who said that, the one who valued partnership above all, who built walls instead of bridges, who saw love as a statistical risk, would never have gotten married. But this Julia, the one who had left her job for Rosado, who trusted enough to fall, who chose love over control, was different, better. She had learned that the best plans are the ones that crash down with a bang and rebuild into something you could never even dream of. When Coop's arms wrapped around her in deep sleep, Julia smiled in the dark. She'd said she would never get married. She had been wrong, and she had never been so happy to be wrong in her life. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Rate the story from 0 to 10. What's your rating? Share with friends. Subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to stay updated on all our stories. And check out more heartfelt stories by clicking right here on the last screen.